this part, no, now, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition. We are in the Gallup Learning Series, session 2. It is Monday night or Tuesday afternoon, depending on what part of the world you're in. Here in the United States, Sarah's in Singapore. Micah is somewhere in an undisclosed location on the East Coast.
It's not that cool. I'm in Virginia.
Come on,
I mean, Virginia's cool, but
it sounded good.
Cool as undisclosed.
We wanted to start a little bit early tonight, like we did this morning. If you joined us or you missed this morning, let's just say that. If you tried to join us and you missed us for whatever reason, I don't know why you would, but if you did, we recorded it for you. So that link that you chose for this morning, you would have chose, still works. If you joined us this morning, same link, still works. You can just go to it. In fact, a really cool feature, Micah, this time, and Sarah too. Sorry, we didn't have this back in the old days when you and I were doing this webcasting stuff. The chat now follows along with the video when you watch it again. So when you're watching it, the chat kind of pretends like you can't add to it, but the chat kind of pretends like you were there live, so you can follow along with the chat. This morning, a lot of links. We had some discussions around the companion guide that goes with this. I need to look that.
I'll get the link.
Would you throw that link in the chat room for me? We have a guide to go with it, Micah. It's going to be important for today, and so you might want to download that. We'll put that in the chat room here. We are using YouTube's chat service. It's available at the just to the right. You probably see it. It's scrolling up. It's probably annoying to you. Maybe you've closed it already. Don't. You want to be there. Everything we do, talk about links to stuff, is going to be available in the chat room. Okay, one of the things, we had 400 people live this morning, and the chat room is a little uncontrollable. So I'm going to ask nicely at this point, if you're joining us live, and maybe some folks can help me, please. I cannot see, this thing moves pretty fast, and we can't see all your questions all the time and answer them. So if we missed your questions, are really important to us. If we miss it, come back and ask it. You might want to hold off till about halfway through before you really start asking questions, because I found this morning a lot of the questions got answered later as we moved along. So hold those questions, write them down. That's what I do here. I write them down, make them just write them down. And as we come around, we'll watch for those as we get towards the end. If you just can't do that, and I understand that, just write it in the chat room. I'll see what we can do to come back around to it. Sorry if I may be jumping in from time to time. You've done this a lot with me, so you know the deal. So we will get started here in just about 1 minute. Hopefully you guys are hearing us. It would be nice to get a little sound check from you. You guys hearing us okay out there on YouTube? Micah, we've gotten a lot of good positive feedback on this newness of having the chat and the video together. So
it's really nice. And I think it's just a little more universal. I have a lot of clients now who want to host things through YouTube Live or Google Hangouts or whatever you call it. And so it feels, it's nice that you can log in with any sort of Google account, pretty friendly. If you haven't figured this one out, I get a feeling in all the virtual learning I do that this is one you should figure out. So that's supportive.
Yeah. I had someone this morning say, like they liked it better than WebEx. And I was like, okay, well, you can use it. It's free. It's got some drawbacks, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to start on time. We got about 55 minutes worth of material ahead for you, plus your questions. So
want to see my smart glasses?
This
is what happens at night, after hours with Micah the librarian.
Micah, we're at 150 right now. We were maybe 250 by this time with the morning crew. So I don't know. Let your friends and neighbors know. Send out some emails. Get folks to join us. I'm just saying, the morning had a few more people in it, but no, actually, we're excited that everybody's here. We know this is a better time zone for Australia, and that's in Singapore and this part of Asia, and that's why we kind of chose it. And Europe and the United States can catch the morning session. Lots of folks from the U.S. joining us as well. So thank you for joining us. I know Japan and in Korea and in Singapore and some in India. It's probably pretty early, Sarv, in India right now, and it's probably too early in the morning in India. Do you think?
Yeah, it'll be around 7:30 in the morning there.
Yeah. Everybody's just still fighting traffic. Right?
It's okay, guys. Jim's video's gone on purpose. If you're worried.
I just put up the Gallup. I just put up the Gallup piece. So, all right, Sarv, I am going to give it a little silence. You'll see it flip to the Gallup Learning Series, and you can start. Okay.
Okay.
And then, you can just, as soon as you see it flip, you can start. I'm going to give it a 3, 2, 1, and you can 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to 2019 Gallup Learning Series. My name is Saurav Atri, and on behalf of the learning team, thank you for joining us today. We are really excited to have you join us for a week of learning offered exclusively for you, our Gallup certified strengths coaches. We do have a great lineup planned for you with various Gallup experts, all sharing insights to help you increase your effectiveness as a strengths coach. We will share key insights from our latest research and about the importance of managers and the role they play in their workplaces. As a coach, you're positioned to help managers be more effective in their roles. As we see more and more organizations that are looking for ways to develop the leaders and managers, here too we know that coaches play a vital role in supporting organizations' focus on development. Needless to say, we have a lot to share, and I'm really excited to bring a Gallup certified strengths coach community together this week for this virtual learning experiences. Um, just some logistics as well. Of each session will be recorded, so you can catch any that you miss or would like to watch a second time around. We just did one earlier, well, I would say 10 hours before this, so do feel free to catch those as well. In case you have your participation guides with you, do refer to pages 3 and 4 to follow through on the journey today. From an ICF credits perspective, I know a lot of you might be ICF coaches. Today's session has been approved by ICF for one of their core competency trainings as well. For those of you joining us live, if you watch the recording of this session, you can earn one resource development CCE hour from the ICF as well. I will provide you more information about obtaining these credits at the end of the session today as well. We would love to hear your questions, your comments via the chat feature on your screen. Please submit your questions throughout the session as well. Like Jim said, it's an ongoing chat function that we have. We would love to hear your comments as well. But without further ado, I would like to introduce today's guest, Micah Lebrand. Again, Micah does not need a lot of introductions. Many of you already know her from the Call to Coach. And earlier today, she was the host, but today she's one of our guests. She's also a Gallup certified strengths coach with more than 10 years of experience using CliftonStrengths as a tool for personal growth and development. And she does bring experiences in positive culture change to her work with schools, universities, and organizations, essentially supporting leaders through coaching, classroom instructions, as well as facilitated strategic conversations. Well, Micah works from home mostly, interacting with people in a lively educational setting like this, and we are really excited to have her join us today. Thank you so much, Micah, for joining in today, and she'll be talking a lot about tools and coaching, using tools methodology. She'll share some tips and techniques to help you get more out of your coaching using the tools we already own. We realize that many coaches leave our coaching resources feeling a little overwhelmed by the numerous tools they received. So today, she will talk us through a few of the tools you may have questions about, or maybe a few that you have not discovered yet. So again, Micah, thank you so much for joining us, and we are really excited to learn from you. We love to hear, your journey and your methodology on using some of these tools, and how do you make them impactful.
Thank you, Sarah. Gosh, I've got to say, this is such a, I think, overwhelming experience for me just to see the chat and to see all of these super passionate coaches literally from all around the world. I'm calling you here tonight from my home that I've managed based on our medium and our technology and our passion for strengths to transform into a studio. So I'm currently solo parenting. I've got 2 kids who are asleep upstairs, and I get to spend this time with people in every time zone all around the world who are all united for this common cause, which is how do we do this role of coaching even better? So I thank you for joining tonight, or this morning, or over lunchtime, or over tea time, wherever you are. We really get asked quite often in our coaches community if we have an activity. I think we also get asked, maybe not quite as often, if we have an activity for a specific cause. And both of those are great questions. But when we were designing that coaching kit, whether you have a physical kit or a digital kit from your experience in your coursework, at the time, we actually took absolutely everything that we had that was our best. We mined our best coaches for what are their favorite activities, what do they go to, what do they use that they tend to realize really makes a point or hits home, and we created it for you and gave it to you in your kit. And so I would challenge, instead of getting excited about, do you have something new, maybe thinking, how have you gotten to know what's already at your fingertips? This session might be pretty different from some of the other sessions. It might be one that you want to think about replaying at a time perhaps as you are preparing for a session. It might be one that you want to come back for some of those specifics and just play certain nuggets of it. I have designed it. You'll notice if you're following along in your companion guide, pages 3 and 4, you'll notice that I've designed our session today to talk about 4 areas. Those areas you can think about as really what is it that you want that activity to do. So we'll highlight at least one tool in each of those areas that already exists for you. Chances are you'll hear things you've already heard before. But hopefully, I want you to walk away with perhaps a new perspective, maybe a reminder of something that you had forgotten, or maybe even just that push that you need to say, think more mindfully about what the tools are that you're using. You are doing incredible work as a coach. And these tools, I think a great coaching tool is one that simply maximizes your opportunity for having a conversation. It's really going to be how you use these tools and how and when you deploy them that make the difference between them being just a PDF or just an activity and really something that expands somebody's mind, something that helps someone take action, something that really sticks with people. Now, I would say we're very aware that perhaps the majority of you today have our digital kit, but several of you also might have that printed kit. I would challenge you not to use today's time, while it is precious, to get too caught up in whether or not you can touch these, whether you know where they are in your office or where they are on your hard drive. Trust that everything we use, I promise you already own, and you can come back and really search for those on your own time. Use today to ask questions about how things can work and to offer insights perhaps about how you have enhanced the tools that we already have. Any questions, fair game. I will answer everyone as best I can. But I do encourage you also to share some of the great insights that you have on how you can make these even better, how you can personalize them, and what's really worked for you.
Thank you, Micah, for that. And again, we see a lot of coaches come to us, with specific questions around, when to use some of these tools, how to use some of these tools. What typical coaching challenges have you seen, clients come to you, and what sort of, tools do you use to tackle some of those challenges that they come to you with?
I think perhaps one of the most popular things that I get asked about is the challenge to in our typical nomenclature, we would say to aim it. That seems to be I can get through the report, I can think about naming it and claiming it, or that sort of awareness and appreciation element, but really using those strengths and thinking about what do I do with this? I think that's a question I get the most. And sometimes it's veiled through what activities do you have? But I think it's more of a baseline struggle just in general to really bend our brain toward how do I lean into this? That, in my opinion, is rooted, and I would say from my coaching experience, that's rooted in how much of a mind shift it takes to realize that there is an infinite runway of potential within your greatest strengths. We are so used to having perhaps it more clearly laid out in front of us, the times that we've failed, the areas where we've struggled, maybe the relationships that have been hard for us. And so I think that aiming it piece partly is difficult because it means that you have to admit that there might be spaces that you're doing just fine. And that might be the place that you need to drill into and think about your greatest potential.
And that brings to the important question, which is your favorite tool and how do you use that?
Oh my goodness. I will be totally honest. I don't use a ton of tools. I do a lot of coaching. I do a lot of coaching one-on-one. I do a lot of team coaching. I do a lot of executive coaching. And I have a bunch of tools at my disposal and I don't always use them. I have high communication and high strategic. And so I think about weaving together a narrative, weaving together a story, and really following the client where they need to go. But that being said, we'll talk about some of my favorite tools today. So that actually sets it up real nicely. Specifically, I've got 4 of them that I'm ready to share with you.
We'd love to hear more. So let's dive deep into them because I think coaching are raring to hear from you, your expertise around using some of these tools and making them impactful for your clients.
Thanks, Sarav. And please come right back into this conversation with me. For those of you who don't know, we get to the delight of really working with Sarav, who I think has spearheaded a lot of the community aspect of our coaches around the world. So Sarav, add absolutely everything that comes to mind as well.
Perfect. So let's start with, the first conversation that you want to talk about today.
Sure. Before we go into tools at all, it is so important to set your intention. And I'd like to illustrate this through a quick story. There is a big difference in shopping and curating an experience. And when you're just shopping, you might, pick up anything that looks shiny. I equate this to a time in my life that I was spending about 75% of my work was on the road or was travel. And I was spending a lot of my career in airports, specifically the Dubai duty-free shops. If you've never been there, imagine being brought up an escalator into the most glorious shopping mall you've ever seen that just happens to have airplanes attached to it. For years, I convinced myself that what I needed was whatever was in front of me, whatever was new, and whatever was tax-free. And while it was fun and I did learn a lot, I have yet to use several of the items that I drug home with me. Now, compare that to curating a purposeful experience. Compare that to, say, what I did yesterday when I was grocery shopping for my family, where the goal was to feed the kids for a week and leave them feeling nourished, maybe a little bit inspired, possibly making my life easier. That's a very different experience. In the latter, I might pick something up in the store that's shiny and exciting, but if it's really not going to serve the purpose, I don't want to bring it home with me. Think about these tools that we're going to talk about today from the perspective of your client and the purpose that you want it to serve, not your own entertainment. You may have done one activity hundreds of times and just be looking for another one because you're getting a little bored of it. I really think it's important that we hold our feet to the fire, we hold ourselves accountable, and we really keep in mind, what is our client truly facing? And here's a couple questions to help you do that. I would say ask yourself, what challenge am I trying to solve? What challenge am I facing? Am I needing to up my game? Have I used these tools before and they didn't work? Am I just bored? That's okay, but name it and realize that that's part of the challenge perhaps that you're facing. Also ask yourself, what am I hoping to facilitate? Perhaps what limitations are there? And when we think about limitations with some of these tools, you've got physical limitations. Maybe that's printing, shipping, space to do some of these activities. Perhaps it's a virtual learning sort of situation. You might be facing emotional challenges. Maybe it's trust, buy-in, or confidence of your client. Or perhaps you're facing a mental challenge, whether that's building awareness, really needing to educate around understanding of what the tool is or how to position it. Maybe it's just that cognitive challenge of helping people understand a new language and a new vocabulary. Think about, I think, as you're setting your intention, how do you want your client to feel? As we go through the rest of our session today, make use of this time right now. Don't make this a hypothetical piece that you'll put on the shelf and come back to, although I'm sure those folks with input right now are just itching to say, give it to me, I'll figure it out later. Right now, if you've got that companion guide, think about a client who could use a tool, or think about a relationship, a coaching relationship that could use a little bit of an injection of something new, something good, a place where you think I would really benefit from, reliving what these tools are. And right now, take a note and say, what is it that I want to provide for my client? How is it that I want them to feel? When we pause, it means you really should be writing things down. Thanks for doing that. The first category I'd like to go into is around enhancing self-awareness. And because we've got this brilliant digital kit, I'm going to be able to share my screen with you and show you exactly the writable PDF options that we've got ready for you. So the first thing I want to bring up here might be a piece that you've seen before. It's certainly a piece you've seen filled out before. And this is called the theme map. So if your challenge is around enhancing self-awareness, again, that's being able to, I think, anywhere between the name it and claim it space for individuals. I'm going to use strategic because in the pre-show, I asked Saurav which of his top 5 he was most leaning on today. And that was the one that he chose. I love this theme. Again, strategic is about options thinking and having many ways around an obstacle that you tend to get to pretty quickly. The theme map, if I zoom out, you'll get a view of what this whole thing is. And then now your heads are nodding and you're remembering what this is, right? So this is one way for your client to truly unpack theme by theme, one theme at a time. One thing that this does that again gets to, Sarah, thank you for asking that great question at the beginning of, what do you get asked about or what do you think you should use? Because I think this really unpacks the challenge of aiming it in that it challenges individuals to talk about not just what the theme is, but how do they best feed it? Maybe what does that theme hunger for? So here's how we would go through this. You name the theme at the top. And I think it's very important when you're building a vocabulary with your clients that you allow them to focus in on one single theme and name that one. Very often, if you're short for time, I know sometimes in our courses, especially our virtual courses, in order to speed things along, we will say, choose your number one theme. In practice, I think it makes a lot more difference to say, choose the theme that you understand the best, or choose the theme that you feel is the chairman of the board of the rest of your themes, or choose the theme that you're relying on most today. What you're doing there, it's a slight change, but it's really allowing your client to take the wheel and for them to be in charge. You're also avoiding, I think, a lot of that difficulty of navigating themes that perhaps people really don't understand. Personally, my number one theme was the most difficult for me to see for a long time. So again, allow your client to select one theme. And then what they'll do is just think about characteristics, words that describe me. And again, you're accelerating from just naming it, understanding the theme, into claiming it. So I'm not just going to say what is strategic, but what is my strategic? Thankfully, Sarah and I also share a theme, so I can go ahead and just do this for myself. Characteristics are words that describe me in my own words. And imagine doing this right alongside your client. You're just asking the questions and then helping them build this beautiful picture of who they are. So I might go into strategic and say, I'm a navigator. I am thoughtful. I like to see the context of a problem. For me, my strategic, you'll notice, ties in real closely with my ideation and communication. So I think about myself as a playwright. I don't think that's how you spell playwright, but you get it. Characteristics, words that describe me. Then what value do I bring? So it's real quickly, you're saying, all right, prove it. Why does that matter? The value I bring, the role I play, the needs I have, and my motivations. You'll notice that a lot of these answers might be duplicated on our theme insight cards. The point is, if that helps you, you can use that. But the point really is for an individual to think about populating this with their own words. And like we know from great coaching, you want to borrow the words your client is using, right? So this is, as a coach, I think it's a great tool for you to use to keep you really in tune with your client. As an individual, it's a fantastic way that you can, I think, dive in and go deeper in that understanding of your own self-awareness. In courses, one thing that I have done, you might even think about doing this as pre-work, and I want to bring in Jim for his idea around this. I've even used this to tie to other tools, which, by the way, you already own and already have access to, like our Theme Thursday podcasts. I'll say, select one theme maybe that is making the most sense for you. And overnight, before you come back tomorrow, or hey, before we meet again, I want you to go listen to one of these podcasts and use that to fill out the rest of this theme map. While I'm talking about that, enhancing self-awareness, we do have hours and hours and hours of professional development right at your fingertips through our podcasts. Jim, do you have any insight into perhaps how people are using that as a tool?
Yeah, so we hear back from you guys all the time when you say, you tell us how you're doing it. So we have groups of people that use it. Carol Ann McGuire is an example where she meets with students and they listen to it together. Sometimes they're listening to it live. Sometimes they're listening to it after the fact, but she's got the students to go. For season 2 and 3, we have companion guides available to you. You can download those, make them a part of it. We have heard of businesses getting together and having lunch through this, going through those companion guides. We even have, Chris Townsend has written actually a really nice Excel spreadsheet for us that, well, it's a Google Doc, but let's just say it's Excel. And it's got a lot of the sections that we have in it. And we encourage you to make your own companion guides out of that. If you want to make it and brand it and do your thing, we have made that all available out there for you to be able to do that. Joanne Miller, she gets her 20 closest friends together and they just watch this together and talk about it. So Micah, there's some great ways. It doesn't always have to be the same, and it can be very, very creative in what you're doing.
Excellent. There's a question here. I can see John. Hi, John, in the chat says, is there a general or genderless worksheet as opposed to this one? I know that this question has come up. I would say number one, you can create your own. And number two, nobody knows that that isn't a profile of me right now. You cannot prove it. Look at my haircut. You cannot prove that is not me. But if it gets in the way, feel free to create your own. There's nothing wrong with that.
Micah, let's also say the technology of these available in the kits. If you download the PDF, those PDFs are writable. You can't in the kit. You would not do it inside the kit. You would download the PDF. Then once that PDF is whether on a Mac or a PC, you're opening it. This is what you're doing. You can write to those PDFs.
Sure, absolutely. And I would say your digital kit is not the place to save these. So it's not going to be, that's not a coaching tool in and of itself. I'll sometimes get that question of, thinking about this as like your coaching dashboard. Don't get yourself in trouble there because it won't save it. So you need to think about maybe a cloud or some other files where perhaps you're keeping all of these pieces, or better yet, empowering your client to keep it, right? It's their development. It should be in their hands. You're just accelerating it for them.
And Micah, I should say one more time, for those folks who've been around for a while and they have the paper kits, we made these available on the PDF or on the USB drive that we gave to you.
Absolutely. Also, if you're like me and you've got a digital kit and you prefer to have paper copies, those are available to purchase. So it's really just all about how does this work and how does it fit for you.
Great.
Micah,
thank you, Mike.
Go ahead. Sorry, let me just say one more thing on this. Oftentimes when I go into university settings, I use the essence of these documents. In other words, I'm not necessarily handing them out, but I've got them figured out in a way or in a flow, and I can walk these people through these things without actually having paper with me. Not everybody wants it on paper. Sometimes they want to do it. They want to doodle it. They want to make it in their own way. Don't get so tied to the paper that you lose the point of what we're doing. So sorry about that. Back to you.
And really, Jim, that was a very valuable point around just, the essence of what these tools are for. And like Micah said, these are shiny tools. What's important is the purpose behind them and how to use them becomes impactful. And that's what, Micah, one of my next question to you is around, people ask that, coaching is a journey. You're taking people through a journey of name it, claim it, aim it, especially around theme maps per se. Where do you see the biggest impact in terms of that purpose behind that tool to help them achieve an outcome or help clients solve a challenge around the name it, claim it, aim it journey? Where would you typically use this?
This one, or I'm sorry, the theme map?
Just a theme map tool, yeah.
So the theme map, I think really this is a basic tool. This is really starting to go take away from here's your themes in Gallup's language and put them into your own. So this lives somewhere, I think, in the claim it space. So that second piece, and I like to think about name it, claim it, aim it as akin to awareness, appreciation, and application. I've seen in the chat a couple mentioning the best of me worksheet, which really falls under our team category. And we did this. Sarav, you and I on our team actually attempted to do the best of me worksheet, which is you get the best of me when, you get the worst of me when, please help me this way. And honestly, I have taught this for almost 15 years and I struggled not to want to say, please ask me to do anything. You get the best of me when anything. It's okay. I can do it. It kind of felt, even as we were, global course leaders actually trying to do this as a team, I still felt that temptation to treat it a bit like a job interview where I really wanted to oversell myself instead of being bold and sort of gracious enough to say, you get the absolute best of me in certain circumstances. I think if you do the theme map, you get to go one theme at a time. So you have safer building blocks around that. So instead of just jumping into, you get the best of me as a whole self and having to be that discerning and that brave, you can say you get the best of my strategic when maybe you go down to the needs portion. The needs I have are to know what the end result is or to have some space to talk out loud. Maybe you get the best of my strategic when I've gotten to talk it through with another strategic partner. I think that allows for necessary discovery theme by theme in order for an individual to truly build a better picture of themselves and lead to the conversations around partnership and the conversations around the team.
Great. What other tools do you typically use as a natural progression from the theme map tool to build a deeper awareness for them?
So, the next piece really is about developing partnerships. And I think what's most important is they're using these tools so that they can play back what's really sticking to them. In a previous session, Jackie Merritt talked about listen, ask, and tell, right? And there are times to do each of those. So I'm using this theme map to really get to the point that they can take away what they're going to take away. And I'll even ask them, hey, what's the most important piece of this? What did you learn from it? What are you going to do differently? And then I might think about how do I help them move from this theme map, which really is about themselves and their own self awareness, to developing partnerships. Because if you're really going to be strengths based, folks, you can't do it on your own. It doesn't matter how strengths based you are. If you are a solo entrepreneur, if you are a one man shop, if you're doing it all, you have to spread through areas where you're not great, right? But in partnerships, that is probably the most beautiful and most possible place where you can really say there are areas where I provide excellence and there are areas where I don't, and that can be okay. Because what we know about great partnerships is they exist where both parties are able to say he or she does something exceptionally well, and that's different than what I do exceptionally well. And there's that mutual agreement around naming that. So, really, the name it and claim it and aim it thing, I think, exists across partnerships as well. Let's dive into that piece. I'm going to share a second document. Again, this is in your tools that you already have. Hopefully, it's a great reminder. This is called the Your Partnerships worksheet. I know, real creative there. But I think this is really great. And honestly, this might be one that lends itself to just great coaching without needing a worksheet. But I do really like the worksheet. The top half of the worksheet discusses who do you partner with? Or with whom do you partner? And the idea is that your client would think about someone who they seek out to be a partner with. So someone they reach to regularly. There's space for 3 people. I think it's important that you go column by column. You first think about who are the people that you tend to rely on. And then you unpack what is it that seems magnetic to you about that person. So what talents does this person possess that make it a valuable partnership? I could fill Sarav and Jim's buckets today by putting both of them down here. I might say that I tend to seek. I sought out Jim today even to think through this very session, and so I would say, what does he possess that makes it a valuable partnership? Well, I'm going to use CliftonStrengths themes because I know them, but he's got this arranger theme to be the practical connection to my possibility. I think about what if, and he thinks about what's already there on the floor. I would also say I reach out to Sarav, and what he does is he makes everything look better. So he thinks about the presentation, how it's going to be seen, how things are going to be acknowledged, and he thinks about the community. And if I'm super advanced in my language, I might start to call this influencing talent, and I might start to call this executing talent. But that's really, I think, a bonus. It's not the point of it. Really, you're still in some exploration here. Then you flip it, and this I find is harder for our clients to name, is who seeks you out. You might even have to get real specific and say, who has asked for your help 3 times in the last 10 days? Right? This might have to be something where you really go back and you think about it, because I find we are either too humble to admit it, or it's difficult to see from our own self. Jackie often says, from a coaching perspective, you can't tickle yourself. That's why you need a coach to reflect back to you. So this part's a little bit more difficult, but who frequently seeks you out as a complementary partner, and what is it that they're really looking for? So I think about a few partners I've got who tend to come to me when they say, hey, can you say what I'm thinking a little bit better? Here's my bullet points. Can you put it into a paragraph? Or I've got partners who will say, I need your advice on how I can sell this to somebody. And so it might be looking for similar talents that I say I get from my partners up here. But it is just that exploratory space for people to start to map their partnerships. And I think this gets to the point of some real fantastic discovery in terms of how do you think about the best partnerships and what exists in those? So there's lots of ways to follow up on this. One might be that I would say go back and highlight those partners where you feel like it's a there's a mutual agreement. Think about maybe partners who show up in both areas, and then describe what is it about that partnership that creates that kind of duality, that kind of complementary existence. You might also follow up and say, who are some partners that you need to work with? So then you're saying, okay, what's missing here? Is there something that you feel you don't do well, you consistently don't do well, it drains you, and you know there's somebody out there who could really help you? On what plane are you on the same page? And how might you think about navigating that by being able to say from the bottom half of that document, here's what I tend to offer in a partnership. This I find is a really great conversation starter that then just opens up that potential for better coaching. And I imagine our coaches being able to use this to be able to say, here's something I can promise you in coaching, maybe that you haven't thought about exploring. I can help you go to those places to talk about partnership. That could be, even if you're thinking about designing a package, maybe collaboration is an entire topic that you want to talk about. Whether you're talking about executive leaders and how they can play their right seat, and help their other peers on, who are sitting around the table with them. Maybe you're talking about families. Maybe you're talking about how do I partner better with my child's teacher. But it really does, I think, serve as just that exploration to say what partnerships already exist and hey, what are they coming to you for?
And Micah, such a key insight you've shared with them around teams, needing that support system. From Gallup's research, what we found when we asked this question as part of one of our poll questions, how many strong alliances do you have at work? And you'll be surprised, the most common number of work partnerships, the answer given by 16% of the population was 0. And when is asked if ever they had a great partnership at work, nearly 1/4 of them actually said no. And that's why I feel sometimes we need support to help bring strong partnerships at work. Even literally, I've used this tool a lot, especially in team blend sessions and helping teams before they get into the team activities to talk about partnerships. And I typically ask one question to them is, what kind of team are you? Are you like an Olympic team where each person plays their own individual sport and come under one common umbrella of that organization? Or are you like a Davis Cup team where you partner with each other and play a game together? Or are you like a football team where you rely on each other to get to that end outcome? And typically, I see a lot of Olympic teams and Davis Cup teams out there. Not many of them are able to claim that we are like a very well-oiled, synchronized football team. And that's what, my next question to you is, before they start moving to the team conversation, how do you set them up that, this is where we should start having that conversation around, especially talking about partnerships? And then how do you naturally segue into team conversations as well?
Well, I'm going to steal that line from you and quote our research around collaboration going forward. I think that's huge. We do have some fantastic books you can pick up. I really like Power of Two. I like Vital Friends. If you haven't, those tend to be untapped and rich with that kind of great nuggets that Sarah just mentioned. Honestly, Teams is a hot topic. I can't count the number of people who have said, hey, that Gallup stuff, can you come like Gallup my team, right? Can you strengths my team, as if it's a verb? And I think that there's a key moment right in there that you need to catch that leader or that manager and really mine for what it is that they're looking for. The truth of it is, teams are very rarely operating as one unit. Most of the time, they are partnerships, an intercollected web of two people working together over and over again. And so I think it's important that you sort of establish that understanding that that is one of the areas that you are ready to go to and that you are prepared and educated to go to, thinking about the nature of collaboration and what is it that exists, who do you rely on and what do you rely on them for. If everybody on your team could say that, imagine that's really where you get that boost in productivity that we like to talk about to sell strengths all the time, right? I think that piece is practical and often overlooked because we want to jump to the sexier team level pieces. I do love this idea as something that maybe even you fill out in a team session. And it gives you, I think, a little bit more important foundational experience to build toward those team conversations. If you can say, what's going on within these teams? Do we have some partnerships that are really working? Do we have some that are not? And how can we address that? And then, of course, making sure that we're following along where that client, where that team, where that organization has the most energy, and really where they're designing their next steps.
So, which tool do you use to create energy in a room, Micah, when you start with team conversations?
You know what? I love we talk about this a little bit, and I think it's gone in so many different directions, but a great energy starter is one that we call Love, Crazy, Envy. I even have this one up and ready to share. I wasn't sure I was going to share it, so great segue, Sarif. It's almost like we practice or something. So this one is available for you as a worksheet. It's also one that I think you can probably do without a worksheet, but think about this. And there are a couple important tricks that you pay attention to right now that keep this affirmative instead of using this as an opportunity to talk about the downside of themes or use themes as labels. This can be dangerous if you don't get this part right. The important part to get right is that the first two questions are about yourself. Identify one of your signature themes that you love. This is a dominant theme. It could be, it's typically top 5. This is an exploratory area, but I think don't put those reins on people, right? What are one of your signature themes that you love? And what is it about this theme that you appreciate about it? You know what I'll tell you? At about 6th grade, which in the US is what, age 10 to 12, something happens where this becomes real hard to answer. Children, if you ask them, what do you love about yourself? When have you done that before? Until they're about a decade old, can do this real easy. For adults, this takes work. It even might take coaching. It might take listening to a podcast or two before they can answer it. But you start with the first piece around identify one of your themes that you are owning here in the room that you love, and what do you appreciate about it? Then also identify one of your themes that can drive you or others crazy. It can be the same one, but give people the opportunity to name it themselves. Anytime that you are doing any kind of a team activity, it is vital that the individual gets to introduce their own strengths before you do as the presenter, before the manager does on, say, a team grid or a poster, or before they even see it written down. It is so important to give that individual their own voice to their strengths, because the chances that their strengths are showing up the same way that they do on paper or the same way they do for you are 1 in 34 million, right? So give them that opportunity. Those two questions, I think, hit on that. So you're thinking one about your own themes that you love, one that drives you or others crazy, and then there's a space to do a quick strengths scavenger hunt. Now, if that doesn't translate, it's about looking for treasure in odd places. It's essentially what that is. And the idea is that you get up, you get people walking around the room. Of course, you can adapt if you're doing this virtually. You might even tell people to, speed text each other on this one if they're not in the same space. But the idea is that you are looking to fill this grid with other people's names and their themes. So what's somebody's name? What is the theme that they love? And what is the one that tends to drive themselves or someone else crazy? What you're doing here is from your space as the scavenger hunter or the treasure hunter, you are getting to learn the other people in the room. From your space as that treasure provider, you're also practicing talking about your own themes over and over and over again. Then, as a way to debrief it, then you come back and you think about what's one theme that you heard about, a treasure that you found from a colleague that you envy, one that you just kind of wish you had. Sometimes I think we do this activity without that warm up or without hearing about it from others. And it tends to be a little bit more of an assessment of how well you know the tool. And it tends to be a little bit more of, gosh, what's your first reaction to those themes? And that's good. It's not bad, but I think it's probably better done from an individual standpoint. And it doesn't quite serve the same energy builder purpose as if you workshop it like this in a session.
And Micah, when run well, what would be a successful outcome of an activity like this would look like?
Number one, it's people get the experience of describing their strengths from their own perspective. I think number two, you're building some awareness about the potential that's in the room. So, again, coming back to that idea around partnership, perhaps you're window shopping at this point. It's that opportunity to say, wow, they have the same theme as me and it shows up totally differently. Or they have a completely different theme as me, but they love it for the same reasons that I love mine. Maybe that is where a great partnership could happen.
And what would be a natural next step from taking them from window shopping to that stickiness of having that buy-in into that other individual? How do you progress that conversation forward?
I think people need the opportunity just to debrief what they just learned, or it just becomes a fun party game. I'm all for fun party games. I mean, it's 9:41 p.m. here. Let's do a fun party game. But you've got to make it stick by offering some sort of space for them to say, "So what?" That might be as simple as giving some people some thinking room. That might be as simple as, displaying now the themes of everyone in the room and having them get the chance to look at what's there and to ask them a great prompt like, who do you need to learn more about? Who do you need to spend more time with? Who do we as a team need to think about honoring more intentionally? So bring it back home with some real so what questions that'll stick with them.
What tools would you use for the honoring part? I think that's a key part around making that transition towards that, internalizing the whole experience for a longitudinal, long-term impact. What tools would you use to create that?
What a great question. I'm so glad we ended up phrasing it that way as what tools would you use to honor people? This also might lie into that build strengths-based teams topic. There is a tool that you would have gotten lots of copies of, look, actual physical copies. They're small cards. They're about, I don't know, the size of I want to say the size of a phone, but that means nothing to anyone anymore. They're the size of my phone. And they are called your talent in action cards. And they're meant to be a strengths based drop in somebody else's bucket. You're helping spot strengths in other people. And that is the first step to more intentionally honoring it through partnership and through teams. Let me just show you what they look like in your digital kit or digitally, or if you wanted to order some more physical copies, you can order them at shop.gallup.com. Again, they're called the Talents in Action cards. You can see, I'll zoom in for you. You can see this is what one side of the card looks like. I saw this theme of yours in action. And this is a strength you have that helps our team. So, again, think about I've already done this for myself all the way back at the theme map, right? I've claimed it for myself. I've said, here's my strategic, here's some words that describe me, and here's what I bring to the team, right? Now you're getting at firing on some different neurons, and you're being able to say, this is what shows up, right? This is what other people are noticing. And so it's that opportunity to say, make sure that everybody in your session leaves with a stack of these blank cards. And this is one way that you're going to expand your effectiveness as a coach well after you leave that interaction. I saw this theme, and here is really how I think it helps our team. Then there's just a great quote at the bottom. You can do and achieve more by using your dominant talents. Notice them. That's really what we're talking about, right? Use them, share them, celebrate them. And the other side of the card is a really great image. There are a couple different images, I believe, if you've got the printed copies here. You could recreate this idea in a lot of different ways. Ideally, you do it in a way that really resonates with your client, because again, they should be at the center of your consideration here.
And Micah, these are such great tools, especially to address some of the key challenges that leaders come to us with around two things around, hey, help my team build collaborations and also help my team perform better. And I think this is a powerful tool to build that collaboration of acceptance of other people. But let's face reality. They want to see success. They want to see accountability. They want to see impact. They want to see performance. What tools would you help them address that challenge of performance orientation for the teams?
You've heard this said in our session, Sarav, because I think it's on some of those videos where we have to unpack the weight of that statement when we say, I want my team to perform better. What does that mean? What are you tracking? What is getting in the way? And I think this is where we're getting into the opportunity to do some fantastic, real nitty-gritty coaching. Really let it get spicy there with people, and make sure that we're all on the same page around what it is that we're talking about. And one thing that I've learned that's really stuck with me through our ICF certification is being able to establish the expectations and be real clear about it. So I think you also need to say, what is it that we mean? And then what is it that we can accomplish right now? Within the span or scope of our contract, or perhaps you're even saying, how far out do we want to look? What is it that you feel we've got the most energy, the most potential, the most sort of realistic expectations around doing? So don't skip over clear into a tool before you've laid that strong foundation around making sure we've got some clear expectations. That being said, I think that there are some really great pieces that you can leave with folks to think about improved performance. And this might be on a team level. It also might be on an individual level. If it's ever going to get to the team level, it has an element of individualization to it. One thing, this hopefully is something you all already know, because I think I've covered it at every single Clifton Strengths Summit. So if you haven't heard about it, I sure hope your friends have, and they've told you it was amazing and shared it with you. But it's our individual development plan. I refer to this also as the Strengths Blender. And I want to share this because I don't think it's entirely intuitive, the way that I've figured out the way to use it the best. This is what it looks like. Can you see now why I think it's a blender? Because it's all about using your themes and putting them in a funnel together. I may have named this the blender during a time in my life when I was making a lot of purees for one specific kiddo. But here's the trick to it. You don't start at the top. So I know your minds are blown right now. We start with the goal or the objective right here. So let's say that goal and the objective, we've done our homework, we've made sure that it's an effective goal and that we're all clear about what we can do and why it's going to matter. This is not a goal writing exercise, by the way. This is assuming you've already written a fantastic goal, or the client has, stated a fantastic goal. You start in the middle. So let's say my goal or objective is to use one of the tools I learned about to make a difference for my clients. Again, not a goal writing exercise. I'm sure you could make that better. Saurav probably has 25 ideas around how that could be a better goal, but you can hire him for that. So you start here with that goal, and then you go back up to the top. And this will walk you through the name it, claim it element of what do you have in your toolkit already. Again, if you position this correctly, it's a wonderful reminder that you probably have a couple things that you're already doing naturally, that you're already doing easily, that are going to make a difference. So go back to those, go back to your dominant themes, and hold people accountable not to stretch too far into those supporting themes. But think about, name 3 dominant themes that'll help you get there, and then why you chose those in your own words. So I might say it's my strategic. I chose that one because it's going to help me make sense of a lot of different ideas, hold a lot in my head. I might choose 2 of my other themes as well. The idea is that you, again, are going back and sort of decoupling this so that it becomes a clearer plan. Then it goes into that strengths blender, and down here at the aim it space, it's really a space to say either one-on-one with your client, or a team could do this. This could be something you could even give a manager to think about one-on-one with every person on their team. What does the plan really look like? What are the steps you're going to take? What does success look like? How are we all clear around what we're doing? It's a simple graphic, but for me, it's one that makes a huge difference.
Micah, this is my go-to form, by the way. I've been saying this in the chat room, but this one, like, if you were going to start with one, if you only had one form, you only had one piece of paper left on the planet, and you were walking people through, this covers so many things of name it, claim it, and aim it. And you can really spend 15 minutes doing it, or you can spend 3 hours doing it with individuals. And it really, I blend in how to do goal setting. You know that goals need really 2 things, right? Definable metrics or outcomes, and a time, right? And so as we talk about building out that statement, man, this form will do so many things for you that I've gone through literally hundreds. I've had the print shop print me like a box of them. And when I go into colleges and universities and we're talking about strengths, this is the very first form I go to. By the way, you can use this form whether they've taken it or not. Like you can do some strength spotting with them. You can say, what are some things that you're good at? We've done some things where we've put up the themes and had them choose those. I mean, it is best if they have their theme insight report with them. And there's some things you can do with this. Our certified coaches learn that circle it, underline it, and scratch it out exercise on the theme insight report. That pairs with this individual development plan like peanut butter and jelly. I know it's probably an American reference, but go with it. It's so good. So don't, if you miss anything, don't miss this IDP. This is a super great form.
And I think, Jim, for this part of the world in Singapore, we'll say, kaya spread and bread toast. So that works really well. Kaya
Yes.
toast.
Yeah. Insert your local favorite sandwich there.
Perfect. And again, a couple of key nuggets to pick out both from Mike as well, Jim. I think, this tool is such a powerful tool because, we talk about strengths philosophy and we say that what differentiates Strengths Finder from all the other tools out there, it's the performance orientation to it. And this sort of highlights that part that, we are not just having a fun conversation. This has an outcome that we want to help you achieve success. And this is an accountability metric. And one thing I typically also use is, a lot of time people come up with these big, hairy, audacious goals and they put them in that goal section, right? I said, well, let's break it down. Like how do you eat an elephant, right? Bite size by bite size. So let's make that goal smart. Let's make the goal small chunks, milestone that you can achieve this week, next week, and not wait for a whole year-long goal that you put in there. So I always think about making goals, that's specific, measurable, action-oriented, time-bound, and realistic. But I also add one more S to it, make it smarts, which is Micah's and mine strategic, which is how is this aligned to your purpose in life? How is this aligned to your organizational goals? How is this aligned to what's important to you, your life successes? And that brings that, believe that, yes, I want this, that why is that important part comes in right there. The other thing I always ask them is, let's break this goal into what's within your span of control. Can you achieve this? Or do you have to rely on other people to do it? Because otherwise, you're waiting for things to happen versus, taking charge of controlling your own successes in life. The final part I say is, how do I hold people accountable to following through on these commitments? I always ask them this question after they've made this. On a scale of 1 to 5, what's the likelihood you'll actually do this action that you've said you'll do? And they give me an answer for a 4 or a 5. I say, well, let's just cross it off and make it something which is simpler and make it a 5. So at least there's full commitment from your side to do it. But see, that's where in my question to you, Micah, as well, like one of the key things is sometimes coaching is just, like maybe we have 1 hour to have that coaching conversation, right? But we want that impact to last going forward. So what, ideas or what tools would you have in terms of recommendations? How do you keep that thought process of what Don Clifton said, right? Let's look at what's right about me versus focusing on what's wrong about me. How do you create that stickiness for that thought process of philosophy of strengths going forward after they've done the IDP?
I think you have to, we talk about closing with momentum, even if it's only a 45-minute session, right? I like to ask people, what is the simplest first step, right? What's the easiest thing you can do? Or I'll even say, what is it that you want to remember? Or what is it that you want to make sure that you don't forget? At the end of the day, I can give you tools forever and ever and ever. And I've got a whole digital kit and a giant physical kit that costs too much to check on an airline of tools. But it really comes down to that free tool that's already within you, which is what CliftonStrengths does, is name what are the tools that are at your greatest disposal. So I would be remiss if I let this session go without really challenging you to think about, how do you address those challenges? If you had absolutely no tools, physical, to work with at all, what would you do? If you want to dive in and think about this, page 4 of your participant guide, I've devised a challenge for you. So I've given you, I just came up with this on my own. I've high ideation. These are not research-based challenges. I wish I could say they were. You probably would believe me if I would. But
you mean like the ones we do on Theme Thursday all the time? Is that like those research-based ones?
Those, I make those up too. Well, they're research. They're just not quantitative research. So think about this. I've given you a list. Page 4, your first column is a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different challenges your client might be facing. Remember at the very beginning, I challenged you to really take this seriously. Don't just sit back and window shop. So if you did that, come back to that client. If you didn't, think right now about a client. If you don't have a client, think about somebody you care about. There are a couple different challenges. I want you just to pick one that you feel would suffice for what they're facing. Maybe what you want to do as their coach or their cared about friend is affirm their perspective. Maybe you want to challenge their assumptions. Maybe you want to help team members appreciate one another, or help a client develop plans for action, or educate a skeptical audience about CliftonStrengths. Chances are you can pick one of those that you want to do or do better right now. So just circle the one that you want to focus on. Step 2, look at yourself. I came to CliftonStrengths from an organization that was all built around this motto of the greatest good that we can do is to reveal somebody's strengths to themselves and to hold them accountable for the greatness that that can create. So I'm going to do that for you right now. I want you to look in the mirror if you have one. I want you to actually look in a physical mirror. If you don't, I want you to look at your themes. If they are not in a space that you can find them, fix that before the next session and find them. Which of your dominant themes, top 5, top 10, the ones that always describe you, which of your themes would you go to fulfill that client need? Which one has the most direct correlation to that client need? Write it down. And then instead of asking you, okay, what are you going to do? I want to focus more on you than the client need. Okay, so here's another twist. I want you to focus even further on yourself and name about that one theme that you just described. What is it that that theme hungers for in order to thrive? I ask this question all the time to people. I didn't even admit it for myself until today. And if you haven't been with Jim and I all day, you probably don't realize that we're going on like hour 27. And I realized that what my ideation and my communication together need in order to be at their best is physical exercise and partners who I can bounce ideas off of. So what did I do right before this webinar? Even though it meant I was going to have to shower twice, I hopped on the exercise bike that I have upstairs while I talked through it with my 3-year-old. Right? So it is up to you. Nobody's going to tell you. I will through lots of different podcasts, but nobody's really going to tell you what you need in order to thrive. That is you. Nobody's going to tell your clients what they need. Nobody can educate the world better about your own needs than you can. So the third question there is, what does that theme need in order to be at its best? Or what does it hunger for in order to thrive? And if I were a great coach, I would then say, how are you going to turn that into an action plan and hold yourself accountable? But right now, I'm just a great, thoughtful teacher and a host of a session. And so I'm going to close with that quote at the bottom of the page from Don Clifton that says, excellence is the manifestation of talent through practice and learning. You already have excellence within you. You don't need tools, but hopefully I've given you some that are going to accelerate the excellence that you already bring to the table. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Micah. And as Micah said, stay hungry, stay strong. As we close to the close of session, I'd say don't forget those ICF credits. Live attendees, this session is worth 1 core competency for your CCE hour from ICF. Also, watch for the event evaluation in your inbox on Friday after we've done with the entire series. On the evaluation, you will be asked to indicate which sessions you attended, either live or via the recording. The professional credits verification info will be sent to you also via email as a result of completing the event evaluation. So make sure you finish that across. We do hope you join in for our next session. Dr. Jim Hara will be there to share our research findings about managers and key things to keep in mind as you coach them. Thank you all for joining us today, and thank you for being part of the Gallup coaching community. Good work from my side, but again, I want to hear from Jim. Jim, what are your final thoughts, final sharings? And also thank you, Micah. I've learned a ton from you today as well. Your wonderful ideation, communication. That's what a strength of what I call a perfect child looks like of that. So thank you so much for sharing that.